Hello everybody. Welcome to the 5th webinar in our Citizen Science and Water Challenges series. This is webinar 5 about using and developing free tools and apps for citizen science. And we only have 6 webinars, so we're coming close to the end of our series now. Just very briefly introducing our team. Up in the top corner there is Leslie Parsons, my colleague and fellow director at ALP Synergy. She's not going to be joining us today. Then you have myself in the group photo with the glasses on, and Parsons. So I'm a director of ALP Synergy Limited. Been working in the world of water, pollution, flooding for the last 25 years. I'm now classed myself really as an action researcher. ALP Synergy gets involved in the space between research, businesses, communities, and we try to help things to happen. We get involved on the ground, we get involved in helping to write bids and in helping to deliver impact. Natalie.
Hello everyone, I'll introduce my colleague John Bryden and myself, Natalie Gilbert. We're both from Thames 21, which is a waterways charity in London, and we restore rivers and research and gather evidence to help with the restoration of rivers and involve communities and community action in as many of our projects as we possibly can, in as many ways as we possibly can.
Hi, I'm Sarah Cook. I'm from the University of Warwick. I'm an environmental scientist. My research is very much focused on water quality and emerging environmental contaminants. And I'm actively looking to incorporate more citizen science into my research.
Fantastic. Sarah?
Yeah, yes, good. Hi, I'm Saurabh Gupta, founder of Earth 5R and based at Mumbai. And Earth 5R is an environmental organization. Basically, it's a citizen-led initiative. And we are doing citizen science programs in India as well as 52 countries. Everywhere we work on circular economy, and we try to solve environmental issues by creating business models around social and environmental impact. And one of our major focus area is the rivers, and because rivers are the basis of the civilization all over the world, and rivers are suffering because of the pollution and a lot of plastic pollution. So that's our core area. But we do other things like the energy conservation and other areas of sustainability as well.
Fantastic. Paula.
Hi everybody, I'm Paula Nixon. I'm an environmental scientist and environmental innovation specialist consulting to ALP Synergy, and I'll be watching the chat and Q&A today.
Brilliant. So, also we want to acknowledge some of our guest speakers from previous weeks. So we have 2 colleagues from Jeevit Nadi, the Living River Foundation. So Shaila Jar joined us a couple of weeks ago and shared her insight around citizen science. Manish was with us last week, and I think Manish is definitely in the audience as well today. And then we also have Dr. Indu Murthy, who shared with us over the last 2 weeks her experience of major citizen science projects in India. So yeah, just wanted to acknowledge other people who've been contributing so far. And then just a very brief reminder for anybody who's new into this webinar that as this is a webinar, everybody apart from the panelists is muted, but we do want your engagement, so please do comment in the chat. We can enable you to speak if you've got great questions. You should be able to see all of us. If we're hiding any of the slides, then the little buttons at the top of the image there, you can adjust how many of us you see quite easily. And there is a discussion session at the end, so please do engage with the chat. And if you're engaging with the chat, there's a little drop-down box. If you could click on the blue bar and make it to all panelists and attendees, then everybody can see what it is that you're saying. Okay, on the content then. So, and then a quick reminder that this is the 5th webinar. If anybody's missed the first 4, they are all available on through links that we've been sharing for you to go and read, go and watch, sorry, the videos. And then next week is our final idea building workshop. So we will come back to that at the end. And I'm going to hand over to Natalie now.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. We have many new faces joining us, so we thought it would be useful to have a quick refresher slide, just reminding ourselves from some of the things we've covered previously. What is citizen science? It's the participation of amateur volunteers in scientific research. And we've previously covered the 10 principles of citizen science, but we've got here just a reminder of the 3 key ones that we would like you to bear in mind during the rest of this particular webinar. Citizen science should have a genuine scientific outcome to benefit researchers, businesses, and also the volunteers involved. It should benefit the professional scientists and also the citizen scientists, so outcomes for both participants. And ultimately as well, enable positive environmental outcomes. So that can be a range of things, so from actually demonstrating new evidence or improved scientific information, or even as increased community awareness and education. They can be great outcomes as well. There's also a link at the bottom of the slide there to the full 10 principles. Also as well, if you watch one of our previous webinars, they were discussed there as well. Next slide.
So I just wanted to again refresh everyone about what we are trying to do. So we are beginning to grow a partnership to explore how citizen science can be used to support water quality monitoring. And our objective is to create a citizen science toolkit that comprises of a set of multidisciplinary research protocols for communities to investigate water quality. And we're very much at the top of this circle in the planning stage, thinking about how science can inform the toolkit and starting to share and build ideas with you guys. As part of this, we're going to be undertaking some twin investigations within the UK and India and use successful citizen science methods that are used by both Earth 5R and Thames 21. We're then going to combine these successful approaches and embed them into this toolkit. And the idea is that the toolkit will be adaptable, so we can take it to other communities and other catchments, and then they can select the most appropriate tools based on the catchment needs and their questions. And we're now going to hear a little bit from Natalie and Sarah about what some of these tools could be, drawing on a UK and India perspective.
Thank you, Sarah. So as Sarah said, we're collaborating with Earth 5R, but anyone else is very welcome to collaborate also to help us create this wide menu of different citizen science friendly methodologies that can be applied in different catchments, both in the UK and India, and then hopefully beyond as well. And that way, researchers and businesses who are keen to integrate citizen science into their activities will have a selection of strategies to pick from. And as Sarah said, the tools should be flexible with a very broad scope of application, so they could be adapted to generate trustworthy, replicable results using volunteers and the local community. They should be simple to engage with and easy to share data, and ultimately should lead to community capacity building from the whole spectrum, from the source of the catchment to the sea. Next slide, please, Ant. So from a UK perspective, what could some of these tools be? Well, Thames 21 has been involved in developing various citizen science tools, some of which are now used nationally. We've discussed some of these before. The best methods and tools for use with volunteers are generally quite simple to understand and implement, but actually with the correct support and training, the methods can also be quite complex as well. So, for example, local people can be, if they're correctly supported with training, can actually be trained to identify species, for example, at quite a complex level. They can be trained to install scientific equipment, maintain sensors, collect water samples. All of these sort of things are being considered in the toolkits as well. We've worked with other organisations to develop litter monitoring strategies. So you might see on the top right-hand photo there in the background, you can just about see some white quadrats there. We have a team of volunteers classifying litter, for example. It could be mapping polluted outfalls. There's a wide range of strategies that can be developed using apps as well. So Thames 21 are using a habitat and geomorphology mapping app for looking at changes in river habitat. The survey can be done on an app and uploaded automatically to a map. So it's really useful for scientists to be able to interact with, as well as other volunteers to see the data sets building up. And also low-cost sensors as well. So this is the wonderful thing about being a researcher today, is technology is getting cheaper and better and more available for use in various projects. So it's about thinking how you can integrate some of these into different methodologies. And not to forget, of course, as well, that sometimes one or two volunteers empowered with knowledge to become local actors can be hugely effective. A whole army of volunteers out collecting information for you. So these tools and the ones that Thames 21 are considering presenting into this toolkit need to be wide-ranging and very adaptable for a huge range of different projects. And over to Sarab for the India perspective.
Yeah, hi. So coming to the work that we do, like this is our approach towards citizen science. So whenever we start a project, and here we're talking about particularly about the river projects. So we do certain surveys when it comes to collection of data and building the project plan. So first of all, we do the demographic surveys in which we first define the catchment area that we're going to work with. So this entire river catchment area. And then we do the survey, which is like total number of buildings and informal settlements, which is the slum areas and other such kind of settlements. Also understand the population and their waste management system, because waste management system can be very diverse depending on the type of buildings. Like high-rise buildings are also there in the catchment area where the waste management system is more set up and more formal, whereas there might be some shops, there might be some slum or informal areas where they don't have a proper waste management system, or it's like not well defined. So there's a lot of waste actually ends up on the riverside or in the catchment area, which will eventually end up in the river. So understanding that is very, very important. So we do a very thorough demographic survey. And then we also try to understand that what is the total waste generation in that area, which is, and then dividing it on the basis of how much is recyclable, how much is non-recyclable, like multi-layer packaging, or how much is the organic waste. Sometimes there are waste like, there are temples by the riverside, or there is a lot of people who actually come and throw the waste. Like the religious waste also. So we have to monitor and manage, and based on that, we design the program and the approach. So we visit the buildings and analyze all of that. We connect with the local rack pickers to understand that, how deeply they can penetrate also to take out the waste that can be recycled, which is not being recycled. We also understand the livelihood. So we conduct surveys going in these slum areas or the local areas, and understand that, if there is a need for certain products that can be provided to the market, which can be made by people living in these areas. For example, if there's a cloth waste which is being generated, if the cloth can be collected from the buildings, and we can find women or people living in the slum who can be trained how to make bags out of cloth, upcycled bags, it can replace plastic, so then it will reduce overall plastic waste being generated from the building. So it's like not just solving the current waste problem, but also coming up with a creative solution which will have a long-term effect in reducing the waste, because one cloth bag at least stays for 1 year. So that's like 1 year people will not use plastic bags. So those are other kind of plannings we have to do. So livelihood survey is very, very important, and designing livelihood program is very important. Then also we do attitude and behavior survey, because it's very important to understand that or like whether people know about it. And a lot of time people are aware about the pollution problem, but they don't know that how they are directly involved, or how their buying behaviors also influence the overall waste. So we speak to the staffs who are in the building. Also, we train the housekeeping staffs. We speak to families. We speak to the staffs who work in the families, like cooking staffs, and understand that we do conduct different types of surveys and build a data out of it, and then we analyze the data to decide what kind of training should be given. Then we also understand different type of other sustainability issues, like drinking water, sanitation related problems also there, because there's a dependence on the river for that. Yeah, next slide. And then there's other type of surveys which are more technical in nature. Like earlier one was more behavioral and going on the population side. Now this one is a bit more technical. So we do drone surveys in which we survey the catchment area. Drone surveys are two types of surveys. One is optical, using normal drones which have optical camera. Then other type of surveys are like drones with more high-end sensors, like infrared sensors and more like advanced sensors. Like right now, we're doing a project with United Nations Technology Innovation Lab for Mumbai for Methi River. So here we are deploying much more advanced level drones, which will be analyzing different types of plastic or different types of material. So depending on the type of project, we would, the entire technology will also, we have to be flexible with that depending on the budget. So, so what we do is, like, we do a survey pre-project and one post-project to understand that, whether the approach that we had was successful or not, how much of waste is still going in the river, or whether it has been controlled or not. And another angle to that, like right now there's a monsoon going on. So monsoon just started. So right now we're doing a survey, drone survey, pre-monsoon, then we'll do post-monsoon, like in the middle of the monsoon, and then we'll do towards end of the project also. So you need to understand that if there's influence, what is the influence of monsoon, like there's a flooding in the city, so a lot of plastic will eventually end up in the river. So what is the role of, what is the actual waste management system because of the flooding, why the waste is ending up in the river? So that's where technology plays a role. We also do water quality testing for the river, which is pre and post and also at different parts of the river, because depending on what kind of businesses are in the catchment river, we have to understand that where is the waste being released in the water. So water quality testing is very, very important. So we do different types of samplings. And then very important is where Warwick University or other partners or university partners come into picture, is sharing these all data with research organizations, with the scientists, so they can, it facilitates the research, it helps the entire research process. Data is very, very important. A scientific approach really helps to restore the river and solve the problem in a more structured manner. So all this data which is collected is shared, and then we analyze, and then we relook into project planning wherever we have to readjust over the course of the project. That's what we do. So these are the survey parts, and maybe in the next webinar I can share a bit more about on ground what we do in the citizen science. So far in this training, I wanted to speak about the survey part, like data collection part. Thank you.
So we are a consortium that is drawn from the UK and India academics and environmental NGOs. And I guess we could be described as fitting together a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle to deliver sustainable solutions. We would describe ourselves as action researchers. And as you've heard from the team, we have a multidisciplinary skill set that we are keen to build, share, and also develop further. And we as a team are committed to working together to deliver research that delivers impact and drives forward action to create change. And we recently went out to India, where we worked on the ground, engaging with communities and with businesses to start to really build and strengthen our collaborative networks. But we really, as a team, want to strengthen this team further and develop this with you and continue to build our action delivering capabilities. And maybe you can be another piece of our collaborative jigsaw puzzle. So next week, we are going to be doing an idea building workshop where we're going to start to think about what research is out there that needs to be looked into and what funding opportunities there might be as well. And really starting to use and think about how citizen science can be applied to real world challenges. And also the potential for gaining support from businesses as well, using some of the techniques that we learned about in the last webinar. Next slide, please, Anne. So looking at our idea building workshop, some of the things that we will be considering are problems. And this is where we really want sort of your help. So we want to think about what some of these problems could be and what needs to be addressed by research. Also thinking about opportunities, thinking about what support exists at the moment to support research proposals. What are the problems? What are the potential funding sources? And what are the existing relationships? Also thinking of some initial ideas for research proposals that integrate citizen science. And we've come up at the moment with sort of 5 kind of problems that we think exist, but we'd really like to hear from you as to if you agree with us and if there's other problems that you think should be addressed as well. And some of these problems are flooding and drought, finding opportunities to use research to support businesses who need to understand rivers, plastic waste water pollution, water quality, and community engagement with the river catchment. And I think it's really important to stress that these are problems that the UK and India both face together.
And you're on mute.
Sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button there, and I thought I'm going to break with tradition. So normally we don't add to each other's, but I just felt, having listened to Natalie, yourself, Sarah, and Sarah present, and then seeing those 5 ideas there, what's really striking me is that in the UK, we often put the community engagement towards the end of our thinking, yet from Sarab's slides, everything was about understanding the community and how it connects to the river. And there's some really interesting differences there that could make some of this collaboration just so informative for all of us. You know, I absolutely come at it from a, how can we help the river? How can we help the river? And then, brilliant. Okay, so there's people that live near this river. What do we think about it? But Sarab, you just described very eloquently how you understand the people, you understand the demographics, their livelihoods, the other things, and then you start to see how that connects to the river. We're all coming from the same mission, but we're starting in quite different places.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I would say that it is like I always go back to the basics, like why we live by the river. That's the first question. So humans have been hunter-gatherers. We used to live in the caves, and we came by the rivers because it's a civilization. Like from being a caveman to being a civilized community, rivers are the ones. Like it's not because of the beaches or it's the rivers. So rivers are the lifelines of the civilization. So whenever, if river is a problem, it's also the problem with the civilization. We have to look at it at a very fundamental level. And we really need to understand is human activities. If human activities are causing this pollution, then we need to first fix the human activities. And that's why this entire program has to be very human-centric. We have to understand that what are the dependencies on this river, and how are we misusing the river, or how our waste is ending up in the river, how we can. So basically my point is that what we see currently as a problem can also become an opportunity. The waste that is ending up in the river can also become a opportunity for livelihood. So a human-centric approach would definitely be very helpful.
Yeah. So it's a rich space for research and a rich space for us all to learn. So back to the slides then. So tools and toolkits then. So we've done a brief overview there of some of the tools and approaches that we're thinking about to feed into our toolkits, but we're keen to hear if any of our participants have got questions about that or thoughts about that. Paula, is there anything happening in the chat?
No, just to give people a little bit of time to ask us questions, or ask even the whole group of attendees questions on what your thoughts are on tools for research that integrate citizen scientists, and what questions you might have or what comments you might have. Please write in the chat field. And I was just observing really the word tool while people start to answer those questions or express their thoughts. And I noticed that we've used the word tool to describe processes or activities that people might do. Software, hardware such as sensors and drones, data analysis even, and then Sarab added in for us something that I'm calling citizen enterprise, finding enterprising solutions that citizens may be able to engage with. And all of these things seem to come together to me as potential opportunities to bid for funding, to collaborate, to form consortia in ways that excite potential funders. So I imagine a lot of people may have thought that tools are physical things like specific sensors, but we've gone much broader than that. Not noticing any questions or thoughts on what we've said. So I will ask specifically, what tools, any kind of tool, has anybody who's attending this webinar used? And please say if you haven't used any, that's okay.
So we're waiting for comments in the chat.
Meanwhile, I can also share that one of the tools that we have used, like, so depending on what are we talking, so let's say that different phases. So one example is that when we sample the river, there are some very basic kits, like we have partnered with some of the local universities. So what they do is, like, there are students from chemistry or biology background who are trained to test the E. coli or certain types of bacteria or certain type of basic, test kits, so they can use it. So that is one kind of kit which is easily available in shops, science shops, like, where they sell these instruments, scientific instruments. So some basic toolkit which is not expensive can also be, part of this entire program. We have done it with colleges and we have tested it. It is pretty effective, like, at a basic level, at a very basic science level, it is quite effective. And also it's fun activity for children also, because when the children also want to be school children, they want to learn about science, number one, and second, they while they're doing it, they also want to be part of the solution, because rather than learning about science in a lab in isolation through just, it's like a script, it's like a drama. If you really go out in the field and you can learn science directly on the ground, they also have that sense of accomplishment. They also feel good that they are part of something that is real. They are part of change, basically. And it's a great way of also spreading the numbers, like more and more testing can be done. So one of the ideas is, like, if you can work on some basic kit, like a very fundamentally basic kit that provides us data on one side, and second is also, it also improves the program, because it becomes a common man's program. It spreads the message to a wider audience that river pollution is important, it's a big issue, and we have to, it's more like it's crowdsourcing the idea, basically. So a basic kit would be useful.
Thank you.
Can I come in as well, just to support what Sarab says? I think that's very, very important. And as he says, as researchers, we're very accustomed to thinking about high data accuracy and precision, but actually what constitutes evidence and what constitutes a tool can actually be very, very simple. So for example, a georeference photograph. So just getting someone to go out and take a photograph and have them upload it to a website can be very, very powerful. So, for example, that could be photographs of pollution, it could be photographs of litter accumulating in a particular location, or bank erosion or sediment movement, flood pathways. All of these sort of things can then be used to calibrate models or target detailed surveys and monitoring campaigns later. So yeah, not to underestimate the power of being able to involve people very, very simply and effectively. And the importance of, as he says, educating and making science seem more real to school students can be extremely rewarding, and also help build a better future with people more environmentally aware.
Thank you. We have an experience of a tool being used by Samrat Sengupta, using a Google form with social media, and we were wondering, Samrat, if you would like to tell us a little more about that.
It was just we wanted to record the distribution of an invasive species, the spread of an invasive species in the northeast landscape of India. So, and that was a very common species which everyone can relate to, as well as easily identifiable also. So we just uploaded the picture of that invasive species and a Google form of where they recorded, since how long it was in their locality, all those some basic question to record the distribution past and present. And we tagged along social media like Facebook and all for that to collect data as much as we can.
Ah, brilliant. We've been imagining that perhaps we could do that with river conditions at the moment. We're wondering if some rivers may be looking a lot cleaner than they were before lockdown, and whether tools like Google Forms with social media could be used to capture the condition of rivers now, so that people begin to really relate to how clean they can be in ways they may never have seen them to be. So it's just an idea that we could all go out and do immediately.
Yeah, it's a good idea, because right now the rivers are like, you know, much cleaner, because one is not only the plastic pollution, but also industrial waste will also be less because a lot of production has not happened.
It may be a way to compel people to identify that the rivers don't have to be as dirty as they've always seen them to be.
Yeah, right.
And to encourage social change. And
Yeah, I mean, it would be good to have the actual data, because a lot of images are floating where people have fudged the pictures. Like, you know, it's like somebody said that there's a dolphin in Venice. Yeah, but they were always there. And there were jokes like the air is so clean that now we can see God in the sky. So there's a lot of, it's like, it has become a joke. So on the lighter side, but actually, if you really want to encourage people, we can make use of some data or some exercise where people actually collect the data and say that, oh yes, the place is very clean, and
perhaps we could perhaps develop this as an idea in next week's idea workshop.
Yeah, we should do something.
Yeah. Even if you do one pilot also and the results are good, then probably there is more chance of acceptance of a pilot to be done at a larger scale.
Exactly, yeah. And then Manish, would you like to share with us your thoughts on engaging policymakers?
Yeah, I was actually just asking, putting this question, that whether in such kind of projects in past, was there any involvement with the decision makers, policy makers, etc.? Because actually a lot of data and research has gone earlier days also, where it is proven again and again in many ways that how polluted the river is and from where the pollution is coming. But the decision making takes a backseat. At least I can talk about it in Pune, where we work and we see with these municipal authorities that even if certain projects of sewage treatment plants are declared almost 4 years back, nothing has happened on ground so far. So I was just putting this question to all the panelists or anybody in the participants, that is there any experience of this project, this kind of citizen science project, influencing the decision makers?
I can speak about from my experience is that uh, while there is a conflict of interest, because political, the connection, we all know that the businesses and politics goes hand in hand. So it is not in a very direct interest, and so that's where the citizen approach comes very handy. I would say that having a consortium where citizens, civil organizations, and also multi-stakeholder is very important, having a representation from the municipality, from the ministry. Having that kind of panel puts more pressure on the government, because there is a citizen backed up project, because they know that if they don't do something about it, there is a, and that is what we are doing in our recent project that we are doing with United Nations Technology Innovation Lab. It's multi-stakeholder, companies are involved, as well as government is involved, MMRD is involved, and uh, uh, it has not, it just started, like right now we are at the building phase, but there is a plan to share the data, work with the government, and constantly help them to design the policies. So I would say that it is very difficult to do when it is us versus them. But if you do a multi-stakeholder where they're also involved, we're also involved, and citizens, a large group of citizens also involved, it can be different. Like there's no black and white answer. It's like more like a gray
Obvious.
area. Yeah, yeah. So a new approach will definitely be helpful.
I would say
Yes,
as well, from a UK perspective, exactly the same. It's not a case of them versus us. It's a case of working with them to change how things are done, and certainly building projects with a community that includes authority figures and also the community really helps with that, because there's understanding and reaching of common ground from all parties. And it's very, very persuasive if the community backs something. As Sarab was saying, politicians and authorities are under a lot more pressure to actually make changes. It may not happen overnight. Some things take many years to change, but it's about sowing those seeds and putting pressure in the right places and building towards a better future together rather than us versus them.
Thank you. We have a question for the panel on water quality analysis from Omkar, asking you, what kind of tools do you use to analyse the water quality involving citizens? And I'll leave you to think about that for a moment, while I mentioned that many years ago, Ant painted cucumbers and floated them down rivers to understand flow directions that might influence water quality. So that would be probably the most analog example that we have. But yes, what panelists, what tools do you use to analyse water quality using citizens?
I can come in on that. We have several water quality programmes at Thames 21. It really depends on the aim of the projects. There are quite a few qualitative sort of colour change test kits from various companies that you can use, which are very good for broad sweep indicating of where problems might be, to help you understand in more detail about your catchment. Also very, very good as educational tools. As I mentioned as well, something we're very excited about is actually building low-cost sensors using innovative things such as dirt sensors in washing machines. They're very, very cheap. You can build and have very cheap, low-cost sensors across a catchment maintained by community groups, which actually then measure a lot more qualitatively your water quality parameters. And as I mentioned again, even photos. We've actually got a campaign at the moment looking at sediment runoff into the catchment. And there's something as simple as a photo comparing where two rivers meet, which one has got the most brown and churned water, actually is really informative for understanding. So we have a wide range of different tools, and we try and employ them all.
Thank you. Now,
As I shared with my examples, that we are working with university students and we are using their own lab. I'm not very much aware about what exactly, which chemicals they're using. I can find that information and share with you guys in the next call. But as of now, they have their own research, like, colleges have got their own labs. So they're using their labs and testing the water quality for E. coli and other types of pollutants. So we're using like the basic, it's not a lab that is like a functional lab, like a commercial lab, but it's a university lab that we're using for this kind of data analysis.
I should say as well, we've got several partners. So we partner a lot with water companies and with environment agencies and businesses who are happy to pay for water sampling costs in laboratories. So often also what we do is we encourage citizens to collect water samples. If it's an event-driven thing, then it's brilliant because they can be on the ground very quickly and collecting samples at the appropriate time if there's rain or what have you. And yes, then they can be collected or dropped off somewhere and actually analysed in a professional lab as well. So it's worth considering university partners or industry partners who have labs who would be willing to do the analysis for you, and then using your citizen group to go out and collect the water samples.
Ant.
Yes, so we have, so Sumit, I think, has raised their hand and was keen to say something. So I think I've enabled Sumit to talk. I'm going to do that again. Hello, Sumit. Did you have a question or something? You need to unmute.
Perhaps not. Sometimes you can raise a hand without noticing. That's what you actually...
Okay, well, we'll see. Well, I've got a question for Sarab then. I think anybody who joined bang on time will have heard that we were having a little conversation around coronavirus and the impact that it's having in the different countries. And as we, certainly in the UK, as we come out of the challenges of lockdown and the impact of the pandemic, the government is starting to think about economic recovery and, you know, the massive impact that has happened in every country on the economy. In the UK, it's not being made public yet, but there are some rumours of green recovery, thinking about how do we build back better, stronger, and maybe really push some of the sustainability agenda that was needed. I'm interested from Sarab and from colleagues, are those similar messages coming from the Indian government? Are they starting to talk about green recovery?
So basically, not particularly about green recovery as such, but the Prime Minister Modi, he made an announcement that we should work towards self-sustainability, more like, you know, self-dependency, because one is like, obviously, with the entire thing that happened with China, a lot of countries are being cautious, and India is also as well, and probably India also, it's a great opportunity for India also, you know, to take a lot of work. So that there is something going on around that. Campaign is there where we can start being more self-dependent, so which is more towards building things in India or being more self-dependent, but not particularly towards you know, environment as such.
Okay.
You know, not but yes, this is one thing that people have recently learned, and where we have recently made a lot of COVID related training programs, because Earth 5R has not been able to go on ground. Our volunteers are not on the ground, but we do have a lot of volunteers. So what we did was we started a very mass level training program on self sustainability. We thought it's a great opportunity. So what we were talking in this program is like how you can protect yourself against coronavirus by being more self-sustainable. So we're running a lot of programs like, you know, how to learn new, how to cook your own at your own, like how not to buy things from outside, how to repair, how to reuse things, and basically relooking the entire thing, how to be more healthy, how to have more lifestyle choices which are more healthy. So basically, we're running entire campaign around self-sustainability. That was our initiative. We're trying to make it big.
Okay. Okay, well, that's interesting. I mean, it was a loaded question, and I'll explain why. If I flick back one slide, and we see here the slide that Sarah presented, and the second potential idea, finding opportunities to use research to support businesses who need to understand rivers. And then it refers to the Alliance for Water Stewardship standard. So I think this is an area that potentially in India and in many other countries is going to grow as we come into economic recovery and out of this challenge. So the seeds of the Alliance for Water Stewardship standard are already in India. There are already companies that are saying, we know we depend on water, we use these rivers, and that we must be good water stewards. We must play our part in the community and the catchment to help look after those rivers. The standard, the Alliance for Water Stewardship standard, is a way of them getting accreditation for doing that. Now, that's already happening in India. It's gone completely online throughout this coronavirus challenge, but there could be a big surge of businesses getting interested in rivers. And those businesses need to work with their stakeholders and communities. So your slides, Sarab, that you described in terms of the activities that you carry out, those businesses will need to understand the demography of their local community. They'll need to understand how their livelihoods connect to the river. They'll need to understand the waste challenges, the water quality. And those businesses will not know what to do. And in many cases as well, they'll need to be thinking about research. So for instance, if you think about the pharmaceutical industry, which is picking up Alliance for Water Stewardship, then they'll need to think about the antimicrobial nature of their wastes and their wastewater and how that's happening. And there's researchers who can help with that. So I think idea number 2 there could be a big thing that comes forward over the coming months. And it's certainly one that we'd be interested in engaging with. So myself, Paula, Leslie, Natalie are all Alliance for Water Stewardship accredited professionals. So just wanted to highlight that, reinforce that, ready for next week and to get people's thoughts going. So some further thoughts. I'm aware of time. As this is our penultimate webinar, a series of 6, we've got our last one next week. We've engaged well over 200 different researchers, people from NGOs, action researchers, students and others on this webinar series. We don't want to let it all just die. So what we're proposing is that after next week, we will set up a LinkedIn group for everybody to join so that we can stay in touch. We can all share and carry on conversations around different ways in which we can collaborate. The UK team is hoping to be in Pune with Sarab later this year. We want to come and see the Mulamuta River. We want to come and engage and develop our toolkit, hopefully later this year. So there are opportunities for others to engage in that if they can self-fund and come along, or if they can connect in activities that they're doing, that would be brilliant. There are also, at the moment, UK-only funding calls linking to citizen science that our team plans to bid for. Now, those funding calls would not provide any money for Indian partners, but if there are Indian partners who can collaborate at no cost, there's opportunities there. But there will be other funding calls, and we have other potential projects which we could connect on. So we don't want anybody to think that this is the end. Just because the webinar series comes to a close does not mean it's the end of our new relationships, friendships, and collaboration opportunities. So the next webinar is next Thursday at 9 AM UK time, the 11th of June. This is going to be a little bit different. So far, this has been a webinar where the panelists all have their cameras turned on. We talk, we control who can collaborate and engage. Next week, we'll be using a different bit of the software, and it will be a meeting. So we'll send out a link to register as normal, but everybody will then be invited to the meeting. So everybody will be able to participate. They'll be able to turn the microphones on and off and talk. And what we'll do is we'll do some small presentations, and then we'll move into breakout rooms and have group discussions to start building some collaborative ideas. So next week is going to be really exciting, quite different, and hopefully the start of some great new collaborations. So please do register for next week. Please do, if you do register, please do attend. We have had on some weeks quite a lot of people register but not attend. We'll be sending out all the links again. As always, we really do value your feedback. It helps us, it gives us insight on what we need to tweak and adjust for the following week. And also, you know, it helps us when we're thinking about research bids to show how we've listened to our participants and engaged through these discussions. So we'll send the link round to that as well after this call. And as we've said, this webinar is recorded. As soon as we can do the admin activities, we get that up on the web and on the internet, and people can go and watch it again, and we share those links. So I think that's it for my slides. I'm done. It's been a fantastic webinar. We've had lots of chat and engagement. Anybody else want to say any final points?
I'm just putting my LinkedIn details in the chat so that people could use me as a central point of contact, because sometimes it's quite hard to work out who is who, and it takes a long time to look through LinkedIn trying to work out. For instance, I'm looking for Samrat at the moment, Samrat at the moment, and I'm struggling to find him. So if you could just bear with me, my LinkedIn details are now in the chat.
So take a look at the chat, capture Paula's details there. If you connect with Paula, then as soon as we set up the LinkedIn group, Paula will be one of the admins and she'll be able to invite you into the group.
Just briefly also thinking about the LinkedIn group and the kinds of things that we might do there to help people understand, and I think there's great opportunity to ask each other about ideas in there. We can certainly share our experience of what we're doing, so it might be specifically about citizen science or about technical tools or about engaging businesses. We can talk about what we're trying to do, we can share what we've learned, we can share how things are going with our collaboration with CSRI in Pune. There's plenty of opportunities to grow ideas that hopefully will help us all secure more funding and engage more citizen scientists to improve the quality and depth and breadth of research, as well as improve the environment and especially livelihoods for people.
Fantastic. Sarab, any final thoughts?
Just that I have a question, but maybe we can discuss about it later on, which is like, you know, like the question was on me, is, on us, where it was like, what are we doing to affect the policymakers? And that's a very important question because, you know, we can do all the work, but eventually the policymakers, when they build a policy, it's for the entire country, or, you know, it's at large scale and it affects a lot of rivers. And so that's a very important piece that we need to think more, and it's a very important takeaway also that is one thing we really need to crack.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. We'll all keep that one in mind. And then a very final point then, just to answer a question that's been sent to me in the chat, but also to remind everyone that we are going to be issuing certificates for attendance at the webinars. The certificates have been designed. We've just now got to get the activity of collating the list of everyone who's attended each webinar, and then they will be issued. And please do bear with us, but you should have them within the next week for each webinar that you've attended. It's too late now if you haven't, but for anyone who has attended all 6 webinars, by the end of it, we'll get a special certificate as well. So on that point, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for engaging. It's been brilliant. As I say, the link to register for next week will be shared pretty soon, as will the feedback link, as will the video from this webinar. So thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Safe. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.